Broke black man fixes woman's broken down car. The next day, a helicopter lands at his trailer. What shocking twist awaits him? We have a problem. The shop manager pointed to the letter on the table. Almeida Motors is canceling the contract. They said, your presence is scaring away the elite clientele. Marcus Johnson stood motionless, feeling the familiar burning in his stomach that always came when he faced these situations. At 42, he was possibly the best mechanical engineer in the county. And yet here he was being let go from a mediocre repair shop for being too intimidating to white customers. I understand, he replied with a calmness he didn't feel. 23 years of experience, 3 patents for fuel efficiency systems, a master's degree in automotive engineering, and all reduced to a stereotype. When should I leave? Today? The manager couldn't even look him in the eye. With a month's severance pay, more than fair. 90 minutes later, Marcus was back at his trailer in Sunset Valley Park, his tools meticulously organized in the backseat of his 1998 Dodge Ram. His 16-year-old daughter Zoe was still at school. At least she wouldn't have to see the defeat on his face right away. Sitting on the metal steps of the trailer, Marcus stared at the envelope containing his last paycheck. Enough for 2 more months' rent, maybe 3 if they watched every penny. After that, nothing. It won't happen, he muttered to himself. Not this time. The sound of an engine struggling to stay running interrupted his thoughts. A new champagne-colored Range Rover slowly approached down the dusty road of the trailer park, clearly out of place among the modest homes. The vehicle stopped abruptly a few feet from Marcus, smoke billowing from the hood. The driver's door swung open and a woman of about 35 emerged, her impeccable designer clothes contrasting sharply with her surroundings. She glanced at her cell phone, then at the car, and finally at Marcus. "Are you a mechanic?" she asked, her voice betraying her impatience. Marcus almost laughed at the irony. "I'm an automotive engineer," he corrected automatically. "Great, because I have to be at a meeting in an hour, and this car just died." She gestured toward the Range Rover as if it had committed a personal betrayal. "I've already called 3 repair shops, but the closest one can't be here for another 2 hours." Marcus watched the smoke. A professional eye identified the problem almost instantly. Cooling system overheating, most likely. "I can take a look." As he approached the vehicle, he noticed the name on the side. A Quantum ZX model from Sinway Tech, a prestigious manufacturer of luxury electric and hybrid vehicles, a car that cost more than 5 years of his previous salary. "Do you really know how to work on these models?" The woman watched him with a raised eyebrow. "It's an advanced hybrid prototype." "I know the system," Marcus replied simply, opening the hood. He didn't mention that he had designed parts of the first prototype of the system while working at Sinway Technologies 8 years ago before being fired after a false accusation of intellectual property theft. What secret past will Marcus unveil? Stay tuned to Black Voices to find out. As he studied the overheated engine, bitter memories came flooding back. Of how James Sinoway, the company's CEO, had stolen his innovations in hybrid systems. Of how he had been humiliated and escorted out of the building. Of how his reputation had been destroyed by well-orchestrated rumors. Problem with the thermal regulator, he diagnosed after a few minutes. The temperature rises during the transition between electric and combustion modes. It's a design flaw. The woman looked genuinely surprised. How could you know that so quickly? Because I would have designed it differently, he replied, already gathering his tools. I can fix it temporarily, maybe even improve performance a little. For the next hour, Marcus worked meticulously on the system, rearranging part of the electrical route and adjusting the thermal regulator with a precision that could only come from deep knowledge and years of experience. The woman watched him with growing curiosity. There, he said, finally, wiping his hands on a rag. It should run better than before. In fact, I improved the efficiency by about 12% by redirecting the heat flow. The woman tried to start the car. The hybrid engine responded immediately with a smoother, more stable purr than before. That's impressive, she admitted, looking genuinely perplexed. How much do I owe you? Marcus hesitated. He desperately needed the money, but something in his professional pride rebelled against charging for such basic work on a design he himself should have helped perfect. Nothing, he replied. I'm between jobs at the moment. The woman studied him more closely. I'm Christine Sinway, Director of Operations at Sinway Technologies, and you're not just any mechanic. The name hit Marcus like a slap. James Sinway's younger sister. The world really did have a cruel sense of humor. Marcus Johnson, former automotive systems engineer, he replied dryly. Christine took a business card from her pocket and handed it to him. Call this number tomorrow. I want to hear more about your ideas for improving our hybrid system. As the Range Rover drove away, Marcus stood motionless, the card between his fingers. 8 years ago, he had sworn never to go near anything related to Sinway again. Now, the company had literally come to his door. What Christine didn't know, what no one knew, was that during those 8 years of professional exile, Marcus had never stopped innovating, never abandoned his research. Hidden in the small shed behind his trailer was proof that James Sinway had stolen only a fraction of his talent, and that Marcus Johnson's greatest innovation was still waiting to be revealed. If this story of injustice and an unexpected chance at redemption touched you, be sure to subscribe to our channel. What comes next will show you how a single opportunity can turn into the sweetest, most intelligent revenge ever orchestrated. Zoe Johnson found her father at the kitchen table staring at a business card. At 16, she knew how to read the signs of trouble. What's wrong? Something with work. Marcus told her about his dismissal and his encounter with Christine Sinway. Zoe's face hardened when she heard the familiar name. Sinway, like the company that stole your patents, the same. Are you going to call her? Marcus hesitated. I'm not sure. Dad, Zoe said with surprising maturity, you always say that opportunities don't come twice. Later, after Zoe had gone to bed, Marcus went to the small shed behind the trailer. Under a tarp lay his secret project of the last 8 years, an advanced fuel-electric integration system, a phase. While the system Sinway had stolen from him improved efficiency by 22%, this new prototype achieved an impressive 58%, a revolutionary breakthrough. Maybe it's time, he murmured, stroking the shiny metal. The next morning, Marcus called the number on the card. Christine answered immediately. Mr. Johnson, I'd like to invite you to discuss some possibilities. Would 2 p.m. today be convenient? 4 hours later, Marcus parked his rusty Dodge Ram in the gleaming Sinway Technologies complex. At the reception desk, curious glances followed his figure, a middle-aged black man wearing a worn shirt and carrying a battered briefcase. "Marcus Johnson to see Christine Sinway," he announced to the receptionist. "Mr. Johnson," Christine approached him. "Thank you for coming." As they crossed the lobby, Marcus noticed the photos on the wall. James Sinway at important occasions. In an almost unnoticed group photo was Marcus, 8 years younger, part of the team that had assisted in the development of the hybrid system that built the Sinway fortune. In Christine's office, the conversation was direct. "I was fascinated by your knowledge of our system," she began. "Did you work as an engineer previously at Sinway Technologies?" "Actually," Marcus replied calmly, "in the hybrid systems department from 2014 to 2016. Surprise briefly crossed her face. Consulting her computer, she found the record left after allegations of intellectual property theft. Case closed with confidential settlement. "That's the official record," Marcus confirmed, his voice neutral. "Mr. Johnson, we're facing challenges with the 4th-generation system. I'm proposing a short-term consulting engagement to improve the design that was originally mine. I'm offering you a professional opportunity regardless of past history." She slid a folder with the terms across the table. The monthly salary offered was more than he earned in a year at the repair shop. "I need to think about it," Marcus replied. "Of course. In the meantime, I'd like to show you our lab." On the way, they passed a door marked Patent and Intellectual Property Archive, probably where the documents that had destroyed his career were kept. The lab was impressive, state-of-the-art equipment and engineers working on advanced prototypes. "This is the heart of Sinway," Christine explained proudly. A young engineer approached them. "Miss Sinway, the thermal regulator tests are still showing failures." "This is Dr. Raymond Wong, leader of the hybrid team." Christine introduced him. "Raymond, this is Marcus Johnson, a potential consultant." Recognition flashed in Wong's eyes. Marcus Johnson, the author of the original SIHV 2000 patents. At that moment, a voice boomed through the lab. "What the hell is he doing here?" James Sinway, the company's CEO, was advancing furiously. "Christine, I thought you were in Asia." "I came back early," he growled, his eyes fixed on Marcus. "And I find you bringing this thief onto our premises." An uncomfortable silence filled the lab. Marcus remained unperturbed. "Interesting choice of words, Mr. Sinway." Christine tried to explain about the Quantum ZX repair, but James cut her off. "Out," he ordered, pointing to the exit. Realizing he was losing control, he forced a smile. "Mr. Johnson, unfortunately, there is no place for you at Sinway Technologies. Security, escort this man out." As he was being escorted out, Marcus noticed something crucial. Dr. Wong was watching him intently and in the confusion had discreetly slipped a flash drive into his pocket. What hidden truth will this flash drive reveal? Stay tuned to Black Voices to find out. Back at the trailer, Marcus inserted the flash drive into his laptop. The message was simple. "I know what he did with your patents. I'm not the only one. Can we talk, Ray Wong?" What no one at Sinway could have imagined was that this humiliation had only strengthened Marcus' resolve. In his shed was not just a revolutionary engine, but the key to his vindication and to the downfall of the man who had stolen not only his ideas, but his very identity as an engineer. 3 days after the humiliating episode at Sinway Technologies, Marcus found Raymond Wong in a discreet coffee shop on the outskirts of town. The young engineer looked nervous, constantly looking over his shoulder. "Thanks for coming," Wong said, handing him a larger flash drive. "This contains all the internal communications about your 2016 case. James altered documents, bribed witnesses, everything to steal your patents." Marcus swirled the coffee in his cup. "Why are you helping me?" "Because he's doing the same thing to me," Wong replied bitterly. "My work on the new thermal regulator is gradually being transferred to his nephew. History repeating itself." "What about the other engineers?" "We're all tired. Since you left, 6 talented engineers have been discarded in the same way. James has built an empire by stealing innovations." Back at the trailer, Marcus examined the files. The evidence was devastating. Emails, memos, testimonials, all meticulously documenting how James had orchestrated his downfall. Even more shocking was a list of other engineers, predominantly minorities, who had suffered a similar fate. They needed someone who understood the thermal regulator problem, Marcus explained to Zoe as they worked in the shed. "They didn't realize they were giving me direct access to their system." Zoe smiled, her face lit up by the glow of the laptop where she was typing code. "And now they really need you." The next morning, a luxurious black car pulled up in front of the trailer. Christine Sinway got out, her face tense. "Mr. Johnson, we need to talk." In his small worn sofa, Christine sat uncomfortably. "Our engineers can't solve the problem. James is furious. We have a launch event in 3 days for the Quantum ZX. If we don't solve the thermal regulator problem, it will be a disaster. And now he wants me back," Marcus concluded. "He doesn't know I'm here," Christine admitted. "But yes, we need you. I'm willing to offer you double your previous salary, plus future royalties on any solution you implement." Marcus looked at the woman for a long moment. "I'll need full access to the lab. No security, no supervision, just me and my daughter." His daughter. "She's my assistant," he replied simply. "Those are my conditions." 48 hours before the big Quantum ZX launch event, Marcus and Zoe entered the Sinway Technologies laboratories under curious glances. Christine escorted them personally, granting them unrestricted access to the system. "You have 24 hours, she informed them. "The final prototype must be ready for testing tomorrow." Father and daughter worked methodically connecting the Syzygia engine they had brought in a special case to Sinway's diagnostic systems. Raymond Wong joined them discreetly, providing access codes and technical documentation. "What's going on here?" James Sinway's voice cut through the silence of the lab in the early hours of the next morning. "I specifically said this man was banned from the premises." Christine interjected. "It was my decision, James. We're 1 day away from launch with a critical problem that none of our engineers can solve." "Solved," Marcus announced calmly, rising from the workstation. "And improved. The Quantum ZX is now 15% more efficient than the design model." James eyed the modified engine suspiciously. "That's impossible." "Actually," Wong interjected, "I've confirmed the numbers. It's revolutionary." A clear conflict crossed James' face. disbelief battling the urgent need for a working product for the launch. Run the final tests, he finally ordered. If it works, we'll discuss appropriate compensation. On the morning of the launch, Cineway Technologies' main auditorium was packed with journalists, investors, and industry executives. James Cineway, impeccable in his Italian suit, proudly presented the Quantum ZX as the greatest innovation in hybrid technology of the decade. At the back of the stage, discreetly positioned, were Marcus and Zoe, watching intently as James boasted about the technology developed exclusively by the Cineway team. And now, James announced grandly, a live demonstration of the unprecedented efficiency of the Quantum ZX. The lights dimmed, a giant screen lit up, and the world of Cineway Technologies began to crumble. Instead of the planned demonstration, internal documents, emails, and memos began appearing on the screen, the complete evidence of James Cineway's systematic fraud against dozens of engineers over the years. "What is this?" James shouted, frantically trying to stop the presentation, but each system he touched only advanced to more damaging revelations. Marcus walked calmly to the center of the stage. "What you are seeing is the true innovation of Cineway Technologies, a sophisticated system for stealing intellectual property from its own engineers, particularly those from racial minorities." The auditorium erupted into chaos. Journalists typing furiously. Investors marching toward the exits. Cineway executives in various states of shock and panic. James lunged toward Marcus only to be stopped by security guards. "You ruined everything," he shouted out of control. "No, James," Marcus replied calmly. "You ruined yourself. I just exposed the truth." As James was led away, Christine approached, her face pale. "You planned this all along. The car repair, the visit to the lab." "Justice took 8 years," Marcus replied. "But it finally came." What no one in the auditorium realized was that while they watched the spectacle of public exposure, Marcus' real triumph was already assured. 4 hours earlier, he had quietly filed updated patents for his Syzygia system, legally reclaiming what had always been his by right. James' public downfall was just the beginning of a much larger transformation that was about to shake the automotive industry to its foundations. The storm that followed the public revelation of James Cineway's fraudulent practices was devastating. In the days that followed, Cineway Technologies stock plummeted 45%. Investors demanded independent investigations and the trade press dissected every detail of the exposed documents. James Cineway was removed from his position as CEO by unanimous decision of the board of directors at an emergency meeting. As he left the company building he had built, carrying a box of personal belongings under the gaze of dozens of employees, there was no trace of the powerful and arrogant man he had once been. Only the rubble of an empire built on fraud and intellectual theft. Meanwhile, a helicopter landed in the community field at Sunset Valley Park, causing a commotion among the trailer park residents. Christine Cineway, now interim CEO of the company, stepped out with a briefcase, walking decisively toward Marcus' trailer. "Got a minute?" she asked, her tone now devoid of its previous superiority. At the small kitchen table, Christine placed a formal proposal in front of Marcus. "The board wants to compensate the engineers harmed by James' practices. In your case, in addition to compensation, we are offering you the position of Director of Innovation and Sustainable Development." Marcus looked at the documents, a discreet smile forming at the corner of his mouth. "And my Syzygia system, we formally recognize your intellectual property," Christine confirmed. Sinway wants to license the technology, not steal it, and the other engineers who suffered the same fate. All will be compensated and given the opportunity to return if they wish. We are implementing a new intellectual property protection protocol overseen by an independent commission. 3 months later, the scenario was unrecognizable. Sinway Technologies, now led by Christine, had become a symbol of ethical corporate reform. James Sinway faced multiple lawsuits and lived in seclusion. His reputation shattered, his fortune rapidly dwindling with legal costs. Marcus now ran an entire department at Sinway, transforming his division into a model of collaborative innovation. His Syzygia system had gone from a secret project in a makeshift warehouse to the most promising technology on the sustainable vehicle market, with his signature proudly emblazoned on every patent. The trailer in Sunset Valley Park had been replaced by a modern house on the outskirts of town with a private laboratory where Marcus and Zoe continued their joint experiments. Raymond Wong, now his chief collaborator, led a team dedicated to expanding the applications of Syzygia beyond the automotive industry. "You could have destroyed the company completely," Christine remarked during a strategy meeting. "Why didn't you?" Marcus considered the question for a moment. "Destroying is easy. Transforming is the real challenge." One afternoon, as Marcus and Zoe were returning from a conference where he had been the keynote speaker, they drove past the Almeida Motors dealership. In the parking lot, the former manager who had fired him was staring at the new Sinway concept car Marcus was driving, his face a mixture of recognition and disbelief. "Do you want to stop?" Zoe asked, noticing her father's gaze. Marcus smiled, accelerating gently. "No need. Some victories don't need to be declared, just lived." On the college campus, where Zoe was now studying advanced engineering on a full scholarship, professors were already talking about the Johnson methodology of sustainable design, a professional legacy that no one could ever steal from him. During an interview for a major technology magazine, the reporter asked Marcus what he would say to others facing similar injustices in the corporate world. "True justice isn't about revenge, but about righting wrongs," he replied, looking out his office window at the city below. "When we face discrimination or theft of our work, the most powerful response isn't to give up or retaliate blindly. It's to keep innovating, documenting, building. Persistent excellence is a form of resistance that no one can deny." At the new headquarters of the Johnson Foundation for Minority Innovators, created with part of his settlement, Marcus implemented programs for young engineers from marginalized communities, ensuring that talent like his would not be lost to lack of opportunity or predatory corporate systems. Most impressive was that in just 1 year, the ethical transformation of Sinway Technologies under his influence had resulted in more innovation and sustainable growth than all of James' years of predatory practices combined, proving that integrity and success could go hand in hand. "You know what's ironic, Dad?" Zoe observed as they watched the launch ceremony for the first fleet of vehicles equipped with the Syzygia system. James believed he had to steal ideas to be successful. In the end, it was that very mindset that destroyed him. Marcus nodded. "He tried to bury me without realizing I was a seed." Marcus Johnson's story had become a case study in business schools and a powerful reminder. True genius isn't just in the ideas we create, but in the resilience and integrity with which we defend them. The man who once fixed an executive's car in front of her trailer had turned his humiliation into a legacy that now inspired an entire generation. If this story of overcoming adversity and intelligent justice touched you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories that show how sometimes our lowest moments can be the beginning of our greatest rise.